Nighttime on still waters. This is NB 506812, narrowcasting into the night from somewhere on Britain's waterways. "18th of August, Monday. Rain in the night. Woke up to streaks on the windows. I take the rake off the cabin roof and lower it into the water. Still a good rake handle's worth of water there. The levels have now dropped by almost 9 inches. Somehow it feels more. The skies brood, but no more promises of rain. The night is still, without wind, without breath, sheltered under a clouded sky. Nothing stirs along the bank, ghosted with willow herb mist. No reed, no rush. Only, from time to time, a gentle flick and wash as a fish turns centre stream, and a faint rustle in the old oak as a pigeon twitches and shuffles in her sleep. This is the narrowboat Erica, narrowcasting into the moonless darkness of a still August night to you, wherever you are. You made it. How are you? I hope you're okay. It's so good to see you again. I put the kettle on hoping you'd come. So come inside and make yourself at home. The water level's low, so watch your footing as you step aboard. Come inside and welcome aboard. Last week, the Canal and River Trust sent out what they described as a Canal Network Water Alert for boaters. And in it, they refer to much of the UK now experiencing a nationally significant incident. Clearly the word drought seems to no longer be enough to catch people's attention or convey the serious implications of a very dry late spring and summer. But terminology aside, the consequence has been, as of a couple of days ago, we received an advisory notification that the stretch of canal that we're on has such extremely low water levels to make parts of it unnavigable, and today we were informed that it's now being closed. And the water level has dropped significantly recently, by nearly a foot. Currently we are floating on a rake handle's length of water. And the other day I measured it at just under 4 foot. It might not sound much, but remember that we can float in just over an arm's length of water. Our draft is just 2 foot 2 inches, so 3 feet is ample. And unlike many on the navigation, at the moment we're having it good here, assuming that there's no big boulders hiding underneath us. But it is strange, stepping down into the boat and watching the muddy bank sides get higher and higher. And even on sunny days there's a strange light. The sky to the north and west, heavy with deep Prussian blues and dusty greys, the colour of thunder and torrential rain. But the forecasts doggedly insist no rain to come. And the parched pasture fields are bleached to the colour of demerara sugar, and only clumps of birdsfoot trefoil and ragwort hold on to the green. Even the nettles have succumbed. The oaks are dropping their acorns early, shrivelled nubs of brown, like deeply pitted ancient thumbnails, lie within young emerald cups. And there's a spot along the canal where Maggie always leans down and has a drink, even if she doesn't really need one. Sometimes she just blows bubbles in the water through her nose. Once she found a nice thick stick floating there and has never forgotten. But now she can no longer reach the water. And the rooks thermal in the dry air, and on hot days sometimes diminishing into tiny Gothic-shaped dots, and below them swallows dip and swoop, and willow herb fuses burn low and smoky. Magpies cackle and pick through the leavings of the sheep. August slowly rolls on. It was lovely to receive an email from listener Tim Hamlet, who wrote about his time on the Kennet and Avon Canal. And Tim, if you don't mind, I'm going to read your email because it's a lovely one. I discovered narrowboats during the pandemic, first following Tim and Prue, then David Johns. Oh yeah, they're the greats, aren't they? And I dreamt of putzing down the waterways, and my better half agreed, so we did it. We booked a trip across the pond, and on June the 26th we reserved the narrowboat Swift on the Kennet and Avon Canal from Bath Narrowboats. Now a bit of background. I'm a 63-year-old stroke survivor of 18 years, and I'm truly blessed to have good health, a great wife, and a keen and curious interest in the easy availability of audio. I remember as a 12-year-old, I would fall asleep listening to the 50,000-watt radio signal, boosted at, as I recall, 10 p.m. It really didn't matter the content, just the magic of listening to an altogether far-flung location. And you know, Tim, that is exactly it. I can remember listening to radio stations that were speaking in foreign languages that I didn't understand, but I still found it mesmerizing. And it's a strange phenomenon, that, isn't it? Listening to these disembodied voices, these touches of humanity that come to you in the depth of night and break into your own particular small world. That's wonderful. I so agree with you. Now, back to my story. On June the 26th, we walked to the Bath narrowboats on the canal very near our hotel. After a brief survey of the operation of the 42-foot Swift, young Alex sent us on our way down the canal. As we are novices, we were sent in a direction which avoided locks and towards the Dundas Aqueduct. Sounds simple enough, but here's the rub. Very soon we came across a swing bridge. Now, I mentioned that I'm a stroke survivor. As such, I'm hemispheric challenged. That said, I was right side dominant prior to my stroke and left brain injured, therefore right side affected. My strong and fit wife was designated with the assignment of swinging the bridge, and I would operate the less physically demanding operation of untying Swift from her moorings and moving past the swing bridge. I unfortunately stepped off the edge of our boat, and my right, weak leg went into the canal. I was facing the rear of our boat with my right leg deep into the edge of the canal, and fortunately still tied to the bollard at the stern of the boat. A mother with sleeping child approached on the towpath, who very kindly stopped to help me, but she was no match for gravity and a 200-pound hemi-paralyzed tourist. Meanwhile, my aforementioned strong and fit partner and wife, and the hero of the story, Tony, closed the swing bridge, and young strong Tony lifted my crippled ass out of the water. I can use language like that as I am referring to myself. If it wasn't for Tony, A&E would have had to have been dispatched. Tony, at the first swing bridge north of Bath narrowboats, will always be remembered as our hero, who saved the day, our trip to Wimbledon a few days later, and perhaps our marriage. Oh, thank you, Tim. I did something very, very similar myself, and my foot went down a crack or a hole in the towpath, and I really, really ricked my shoulder, which was painful for about a year after. I couldn't use it properly for about a year afterwards. So you totally have my sympathy. And also, I agree. Thank you, Tony. And of course, Tim's wife too. And it was lovely to hear from JB on Mastodon. Thank you, JB. And I'm really pleased that you've been enjoying catching up on the podcasts. And also a quick hello to Mind Shambles. Thank you as always for your support and all your comments. I really do appreciate them. Hello to Jason and Karen. And thank you for your kind words, Jason. And I'm really pleased that things are appearing to be progressing now concerning your relocation across the Atlantic to these shores. How exciting. Hello also to Tracy Thomas and to LJ and Bodie. And a special greeting to Deb Moon Mountford. I'm so pleased that Rough Crossings is one of your favourite episodes, Deb. I can vividly remember doing that one, and it's close to my heart too. And I'm also really intrigued by your 40-year-old mystery and look forward to hearing more about that. But keep strong, Deb, and remember it's also okay to crumple too. Wild geese know that there's a time to lead the flock and times to ride on the wing flow of the others. You are wiser than you know. And I'm also becoming aware that there are a few comments that have been left on Spotify that I haven't received any notifications about, and also a couple that I have received notifications for, but I just cannot find them. So if you have left a comment there and I haven't responded, I do apologise, and I will keep looking. However, one that did get through was from Leron, and I'm so pleased you enjoyed the Christmas Heron story. Don't worry, you and your husband certainly aren't the only listeners to fall asleep before the episode's end. I count it as a job well done when people tell me that. A couple of quick hellos. First to Tania and Taki over in Australia. Thank you, Tania, for your email. And that map looks amazing. What with everything happening, I haven't had a chance to look at it properly, but I love the fact that it exists, and I will write back to you. It was also really lovely to get a quick message from Orange Cookie. I hope all is well with you both. And another creative on Instagram. Hello to Callie Conway Prince. I hope you're finding inspiration, Callie, and that your print challenge is going well. I also just want to send a quick shout out to Lane over on Blue Sky. Lane, I know you listen to this podcast and your writing is always an inspiration. I don't think I've ever come across anybody who can capture in words the beauty, the pathos, the wonder, and sometimes the harshness of the coastline and the sea as well as you do. Thank you for your words. They always inspire me. And all that remains for me to say is a big thank you to all of our Lockwheelers for supporting this podcast. They are Susan Baker, Mind Shambles, Clare Hollingsworth, Kevin B., Fleur and David Mcloughlin, Lois Raphael, Tania Yorgey, Andrea Hansen, Chris Hinds, Chris and Alan on the narrowboat The Land of Green Ginger, Captain Arlo, Rebecca Russell, Alison on the narrowboat Mucker, Derek and Pauline on Silver Fox, Anna V, Orange Cookie, Mary Keane, Tony Rutherford, Arabella Holtzapfel, Rory with MJ and Kayla, the narrowboat Precious Jet, Linda Reynolds Birkins, Richard Noble, Carol Ferguson, Tracy Thomas, Mark and Tricia Stowe, and Madeline Smith. Thank you. The shimmer of sun filtering through thick canopy of older leaves has a powerful and mesmerizing beauty about it. It is captivating in every sense of that word. The shifting dance of light and shade, turning dark leaves into translucent green glass. It's been a strange time these last 4 or 5 months. I felt so creatively supercharged, like a never-ending flow of ideas, images, words, sentences, phrases, all pouring through my fingers, down the pen or onto the keyboard. It's a strange sensation, this feeling of knowing that I can sit in front of a blank page and all I need to do is to start writing. And then, watching words form like clay between a potter's hands, being moulded out of shapeless nothing. It's not necessarily good, but it does feel good to feel the weight of words in my hand, that act of creation. It feels good when something inside leaps out and connects with a spark on the paper. Cathartic, therapeutic. No, it's more than that. It's more than restorative. It's essential. Art is about the creation without thought to its consumption. And few people have written better on art and the artistic process than Darby Hudson. In fact, few people have written better on anything than Darby Hudson. Money buys you a roof, he writes. Poetry buys you a floor so you don't fall through the nights. And that's it. The sheer profound importance of poetry, art, the creative act, caught in 17 words, 20 syllables, smoothed and rounded by an Australian twang and urban grit. Nuggets of wisdom hewn from the bedrock and seams of broken places, witty, dry, wise. In the introduction to his tiny collection of writings, he writes, I sat by the train track for 10 years at night, Ripponley, Melbourne, Australia, after work, exhausted. It was a sacred space between home and job where I'd find a sense of timelessness, a crow's nest of the self, where I tried to make sense of the world. I loved watching trains light up this place. Hordes of commuters flung past through this riverbed of steel like industrial fireworks. Here I collected these following little ideas, jigsaw pieces, to create my own picture of life, one that made sense to me. Up until then, all the pictures on all the jigsaw boxes that were presented to me for how life was supposed to be rarely, if ever, made sense. And I guess that's it. The perfect summation of the creative process and its importance. Nothing flashy. Nothing about cultivating huge audiences, surfing the vacuous heartbreak of popularity, amassing wealth, but finding in the jigsaw pieces of words, images and ideas, patterns and forms that help us to make sense of the brokenness and lostness of our worlds. Creating poetry, or anything, stops you falling through the floor into the darkness of night. Sometimes when the sun is in the right place, the canal shimmers through these older leaves, lighting the underside of them, casting rippling patterns that dance with reflected sunshine. And for a short while, the leaves know what the moon feels like, bathing the world below in reflected light. Often at those times, the leaves turn translucent, so that you can see veins herringboning out from the midrib. Tiny patterns of the tree within the tree. I love that one time Darby took his mother to this spot beside the railway lines, and later she wrote to him this: "Darby, love, thank you for taking me to your special place by the train tracks. Sorry, love, but I'm going to sit with you under this old tree for the rest of the night, and also watch the trains go by. Watching commuters cattled past, the trains lighting up this riverbed of steel like industrial fireworks is dreamy. You can feel the patience in the dirt where we're sitting, as things hurry past on concrete and steel. A life from the sidelines. What magic!" So why do I sit and write down so much, particularly at these times of creative flow? For this podcast? I don't think so, not really. Without it, I would still feel that overwhelming urge to find music with words and dance with the strange rhythms they create. And certainly not to be famous, to be rich. Perhaps once long ago, I did have dreams of being an author. The waste paper bin of my memory is filled with crumpled plot lines and characters who have long ago lost their way along with their voices. But the dreams fade and become irrelevant, sitting awkwardly in the attic of my past. So when I scrape my ankle on them in the half-light, I can't help but ask, did that once really belong to me? Racing driver, mountaineer, award-winning photographic journalist, author. The end point of creation is not consumption. Sometimes, if you are lucky, you might be able to draw upon its consumption to fuel the fire of the pure acts of creativity. But as in Buddhism, the journey is the destination. So in art, the fulfillment is in that messy, ugly, sometimes painful, sometimes beautiful, always exhilarating, destructive, affirming, glorious, magical process. It's what the champions pushing the use of AI in creativity just don't get. Its injurious impact on the consumer market for art, music, literature aside, and that's a very serious point. Trying to sell me a quick, easy way to create a poem, a song, a book, a piece of artwork. It's like trying to take the very point of doing it away from me. Sitting at my desk, desperately hunting for that one right word that somehow keeps to the shadowy penumbra of my thoughts. And when I do glimpse it, only to realize that it too won't work. Writing is a listening to the shapeless silence within. W. Hudson again. AI cannot do that. It can never know the shapeless silence within me or within you. That's why it will always be nothing more than a diverting but ultimately dissatisfying entertainment. A glittering, flashy bauble to distract us for a few more minutes from our potential to touch reality. Dylan Thomas wrote about his craft or sullen art. Darby Hudson writes about, if you can smuggle your 3 a.m. self into all your 3 p.m.s, you're an artist. You see, the thing is, it's not about temperament. It's not about artistic abilities. We all have within ourselves something that's creative. You are, by your very nature, creative. As again, Darby Hudson so beautifully puts it, worry is creativity's idiot twin. They both make shit up out of nothing. One gives you a panic attack, the other a painting. Same engine, different destinations. Everyone's got the ability to turn nothing into something, but most use their magical brain to waste it on petty nonsense because the world sells endless fear to mistake as excitement. Early on, I realized I couldn't loan my spark to that circus. Instead, I used it for art, and I got bolder. Against all reason, I stopped worrying about the bigger stuff, bills, jobs, dying alone. I just quit. And that's when I had all this extra room in my head for actual magic. And finally, the bills paid themselves. Life took care of itself. It always has. And now I was alone with new music, perfect stupid, and a blazing army of stars. And that's the creativity I'm talking about. Nothing grand, nothing flashy. We all need that. That thing that we do that keeps us falling through the floor into the night. Just the joy of creating something wonderful that wasn't there before, even if it was just a smile or a word to someone unexpected. These are all little miracles of creativity. Taking the ugly and the hurt and the no things and making something beautiful or wonderful or magic. Make something beautiful, Darby Hudson says, and it will kick away and outlive the trouble from which it was created. For much of this year, the alders have sung with sweeping wind songs of symphonies that have wept catkins and cones upon the breeze. They rattle down upon the cabin roof and scatter crispy confetti on the grass and pathways. From times lost, trees have been one of the wind's first voices. Trees tell us the secrets of the wind. Be careful, they say. That man that you have made king has donkey's ears. Dangerous, subversive songs. And so, for much of this year, for me it's been a time of creative flood tide, springtide, marsh tide, elemental alchemy, turning land to water, transforming the world where the line between water and sky dissolves into mist and imagination and gull cry. And after all of those dry seasons, creative flood tides drench and satiates that burning thirst deep within my bones. My notebooks fill up. Files proliferate on my laptop. But even then, I knew it won't work. You see, it never works like that. Pinning the emerald magic of a dragonfly to a collector's specimen board. I haven't even bothered yet to look back on my notes, to flick through those heart-racing exhilaration of the flood tide. Since a small boy, selecting a pretty shell or pebble on the beach, carefully wrapping it in my grubby handkerchief to take home with me, to hold on to that one stolen moment on holiday sands, and the strange dullness of disappointment when I got home. In the collecting and carrying of it, it transformed from something enchantingly beautiful to something drab and mundane. The sleek gleam and slippery glisten of seaweed, bladderwrack, kelp, sea urchin, mermaid's poeses, dry, desiccated, brittle. We thought we could cheat, my sister and I, covering our treasure trove of pebbles and shells with varnish, so that once more the colours gleamed and the light shone. But even then it wasn't the same. Andrea Hansen is right. You can't write a poem by setting out to write a poem. In the same way, you can't see something in the dark by directly looking at it. It must appear from the side of your vision. You can't artificially recapture wonder. And notebooks are just like that. The dried exoskeletons of thought, ideas that swirled like Catherine wheels and galaxies in the darkness of the alchemy of the creative act. The transmutation of logos poeticus into a desiccated carapace of husk. A fossil of what once was. What once, for a short while, flashed and danced, flaring with such a potency that it could turn my night into day or could topple giants. Plato, for all his faults, understood the infuriatingly paradoxical nature of writing well. Not surprisingly, he called it a pharmacon, both remedy and a poison. Oh, I will keep all, or at least some of my notes. They will have a use. I might not be able to recapture the living spark that flared so magically in my head, but it will remind me of that experience. It'll take my mind back to that time, and a memory of the feeling, sometimes not always pleasant. And who knows, one or two may even find their way into future episodes. And some of it has already made it onto social media, but most, the ones I feel closest to, I keep in my notebook, stamped, sealed. Some are just too precious to lose to the chaotic, turbulent scrutiny of the digital world. Because the problem is that we've become fixated with the idea of artistic worth being quantified and valued by measurements that have no right to even touch artistic endeavour. Its price, the number of likes, downloads, comments, views, fixated by the spotlight. Andrea Hansen again. Spotlights rarely highlight greatness. They're mostly designed to cast the many in darkness. It's true. It's what spotlights are for, not to light, but to cast their darkness. So don't let this obsession with spotlights and audience reach rob you of the joy of your creative spark. Just for fun and to stretch me a little this year, I've been experimenting with writing haiku. 17 syllables, 5, 7, 5. And one of them was this, which I think is quite pertinent. Poems, like prayers, are best written on water, the way of the heart. For it's the creation rather than the reception is where joy and fulfillment is found. And I sit still here, looking upward into this canopy of alder leaves. Sometimes when it rains, it sounds as if the trees are sighing. And unless the shower is really heavy, few drops can make it through the dense foliage. I am sheltered, my back leaning against the fissured varnish of their dark bark, a haze of insects around my head, waiting with me, watching with me, the rain fall an arm's length away. Above us, the leaves shiver and tremble, passing drops from one to another, It must be fun to be a raindrop, landing in the arms of a tree. And now the marsh tide is over, the time of ebb. The fullness of fruiting is over, and my pen lies beside my notebook. The cursor blinks at me on a ghost-white page. Nothing. I pick up the pen. I do have 2 or 3 ideas I want to write about, but the pen nib remains in the air. A thunderfly scuttles across the notebook's open page with an eloquence far beyond my mastery. And I guess it neatly sums up where I am at the moment. Sailing shattered shards of words like so many folded paper swans out into the river. Enjoying, and sometimes not enjoying, the struggle to capture in the side glimpse of vocabulary something that is in essence inexpressible. To enjoy feeling the intangible run through my fingers in a stream of syllables and syntax. Riding the ebbs and flows, the cycles and the seasonal shifts. Once I would have been worried. Is this it? Is this the end? Have I run dry? Well, yeah, I have run dry. But that's all part of it. Out of the dryness and the barrenness, beautiful things will come. That's the whole point of tides, ebb and flow, of cycles. I delete another email offering me an AI-driven service that will transform my podcasting, that will take a few spoken notes, create a professional script tailored to my specific audience, and then produce the final podcast from 15 minutes to 2 hours, just specify the length. Research shows that I can be among the leading podcasts and accrue an income in the thousands of dollars. The page of my open notebook remains blank. But I'm happy. In times of creative ebb, that is as it should be. And so I find myself sitting here under the alder trees, their light flittering through the canopy of leaves. My pen still, my mind dull. Or, if not completely dull, at least void of words. A hornet buzzes round my head. I'm glad it's here. Further up there are wasp traps, a grim yoga of horror, filled with dead and dying bees and wasps and hornets and anything else attracted to nectar and the sweet. I'm glad this hornet is here, not there, is alive with me. That we both can look up into the heart of this alder tree as it climbs to the sky. And in all honesty, all I want to do is remain here, wordless, thoughtless, as instinctual and as elemental and as alive as a hornet. We are alive in a world of miraculous creativity, a world in which everything alive is constantly transforming, changing, creating. It's not surprising we feel that deep within us. Creating something out of the nothings, the no things. We cannot help it. Darby Hudson. Even as you stumble through your own darkness, swallowing nights full of black rainbows, you unknowingly leave a trail of colour in your wake. Yes, you do that. We live in a culture that narrowly defines creativity between rigid margins and then places them to one side as being unimportant for the real business of life. A mere hobby, a relaxation, something that's just diverting, something to enjoy when the real work has been done. And then it places its own sets of algorithm-friendly values upon them by which they should be measured. It then isn't surprising that the creative impulse rebels against them. All that is so far from the creative impulse as it can get. Don't let the world that we've created steal your soul. Buy yourself a Fleur so that you don't fall through the nights. Think of your favorite word. Just a single word. Let it roll around your mind. Feel its weight on your tongue. Watch how it glows and sings. Note how it feels, the dreams it spins, the worlds it opens, the memories it conjures. Now tell me, that word is more valuable when it's pinned on a page, read by 1,000 eyes, weighed on a balance created by people whom you never knew, analyzed by people who have never felt those dreams, those worlds, those memories. And now tell me that word is more valuable when it's crushed between the pages of a volume that's celebrated by women who have torn themselves away from daytime TV to sip champagne through the corners of their mouths, and men who chart their significance by their ranking on a list and a plasma screen, and if they ever heard your word, would plan a party so they could wear their new suit. But that word, carved from your soul and set free to glow on that computer screen, where it whispers your secret thoughts to a deaf world who never seems to hear. It was as if you handed it to me, gently cupped like a prayer, in your uncertain, frustrated hands. And I heard it, and I saw it fly. And that's why I stand in the rain on this hill and whisper it to this silent sheep that doesn't understand what I say, but seems to recognize all that your word means to you and to me. And we watch it flame like a firework in the sky. And only you and me and a bedraggled sheep have heard your word. But it can never be more precious than it is this day. Remember, you do make a difference, and your voice is beautiful. And this is the narrowboat Erica, signing off for the night, and wishing you a very restful and peaceful night. Good night. Temperature outside 18 degrees. Inside 21 degrees. Humidity 60%. Dew point 10 degrees. Wind direction west. Wind strength less than 1 mile per hour. Barometric pressure 1019.3 falling. Cloud cover 98%. Cloud ceiling 4,900 feet. Precipitation nil. Moon phase 0.5% new moon. Day length 14 hours 10 minutes. Sunset 2014. Sky casting 6:05.